in the later half of the meeting, it is unclear. But so I will be your fearless leader. So we'll start today with roll call. Julie.
Okay, Farhan Chowdhury. Didn't see. Michael Eichholz.
Present.
Scott Gilbert.
Here, thank you.
Elaine Drakowski.
Present.
Oh, okay, I see you there.
Oh, Julie, you're muted somehow.
Sorry, I'm trying to write on my kind of the corner of my keyboard.
No worries.
Soon-Hee Lee,
Yes.
Patrick McGrath. Yes. Kelly Mixon.
I see him
Let's see
on.
him. Walter Metz. Bethany. Here.
I'm here.
Joseph Stramick. Don't see him yet. And myself.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much. All right, so I'd like to move on to the approval of the minutes from last week's meeting. Are there any changes that need to be made to the minutes? All right. If there's no discussion about the minutes, I would like to move to a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sun-Hee.
Do we want to have a vote or?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Have a vote.
I'll go with the people who were present. Michael Eichholz,
Yes.
Scott Gilbert,
Yes.
Elaine Drakowski,
Yes.
Yu-Ting Lee, oh, sorry, Soon-Hee Lee,
Yes.
Patrick McGrath,
Yes.
Bethany Rader,
Yes.
and Julie Tate. Yes. Okay.
All right, moving right along. So the next item is Eugene Lee's report. And I think, Julie, you have a copy of that.
I do. So I'm reading this as he has written this. Good afternoon, everyone. As you know, our October issue of Faculty Senate Updates FYI newsletter went out to all faculty members by the end of October. In addition, I have several business matters to report to you briefly. First, as the Provost Search Committee Chair, I had a meeting with two of the Whitkeefer search consultants on October 17th. At the meeting, we discussed the draft agenda for the coming search committee meeting, which was scheduled at the end of October. Second, on October 17th and October 20th, I participated in 2 interviews of the Chief of Information Officer candidates to represent the Faculty Senate. On October 18th and 19th, due to my schedule conflict, Senator Patrick McGrath and Senator Elaine Drakowski helped me to participate in 2 other interviews of the CIO candidates. I wish to express my appreciation and gratitude to Drs. McGrath and Drakowski for their time and collaboration in representing the Faculty Senate in this process. Third, on October 20th, we had an MS team with Chancellor Lane, Provost Camargo, and AP Morris. We talked about such issues as operating papers of schools and colleges, appointments of school directors, faculty raise, and internal equity adjustments for faculty. Fourth, regarding the provost search, on the afternoon of October 25th, we held a meeting with almost all search committee members. We discussed and decided on a list of semi-finalists for the Zoom interviews, which is scheduled in early November. As planned, the finalists will be invited for campus interviews in mid-November. Finally, on October 26th, I attended the FACSS Council meeting chaired by SIU System Vice President Dr. Girish Gupshup. I'm sorry about that name. FACSS stands for Faculty Affairs Council of SIU System. Again, we discussed the faculty welfare issues, its membership issues, and more collaboration between SIU-C faculty and SIU-E faculty. I shared the info with you as Faculty Senate Executive Council members via email. If you have any questions, please direct it to me by email or when I am here at around 2 p.m. today. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much for reading that. And Josh, I have a question for you. Patrick has asked me whether or not Walter Metz, is he on sabbatical?
No.
So he's no longer, he resigned entirely.
Resigned
Yes,
Senate
okay.
entirely.
Okay,
Yeah, so we should take him
Thank you
off
for
the
sending,
list.
thank you, Josh, for sending me the link. I didn't have a link to the meeting.
Oh, no. Oh, gosh, sorry about that.
Very,
It was on the agenda, Joe. And did you, if you got the faculty agenda, the
the
meeting
agenda, no, the agenda that you team gave me didn't have it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to find where the link is, but just because we have so many of them.
I apologize for being late. Thank you,
It's-
everyone. Your
No
forbearance.
worries.
It's not your fault at all, Josh. It's just, hard trying to juggle all these Zoom links.
And we are glad you're here, Jim. We have gone through the first couple agenda points just to bring you up to speed. And if there's no other discussion, we can move on to reports. So the first report has already been given. Again, thank you for reading that out, Julie. We appreciate that. And I am the second report. So as chair of election committee, I wanted to update you. So we have our committee up and running. It's a little hard to meet in person just because of the composition of the committee. So we're trying to do everything over email. But we have, so what the election committee does is it approves lists, at least at this early stage of elections, it approves lists that go out to the units for special elections, for Senate members, and to those units for the JRB election, which we're also starting this month. So we're in the process of approving those lists once for the special election, and once those lists are approved, we will be able to send out nominations finally to those 4 units. So we have 3 empty seats for CAM, 1 for CHHS, 1 for CECTM, and 1 for School of Medicine. So those are the seats we're trying to fill. We really hope we are able to fill them this time around. It's been a bit of a challenge getting names to put on the ballot, but we're hopeful for this fall. So hopefully those will go out either by the end of this week or by Monday. And then once we get that ball rolling, we're going to switch to approving the lists for the JRB. So by the it's November, yeah, by the December meeting, we should be voting on those new members to the Senate and for the JRB as well. So that's all I have for you. Any questions? All right, we can move on to the Faculty Status and Welfare Committee.
Yes, I could briefly mention we have don't have any thing specific to announce or I think discuss. We're in the midst of some. We chatted with Ting recently about a matter, but it's not something where we have something a result. I guess to share, unless my chair is here, but no, so I think we have nothing new to report.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the Faculty Status and Welfare? All right. Oh yes.
It's just something that Elaine and I were in a previous meeting when we were for the ad hoc committee, and something that was mentioned to the 2 of us at that meeting was there was a faculty survey that went out recently. It was suggesting that there was a general climate of satisfaction among rank and file faculty. Do you know anything about this survey, or has there been anything that the Faculty Senate, would like to? Is there any way the Faculty Senate can verify that where this is coming from? Because there was a member of the committee that was found out about this and was mentioning it to Elaine and I.
Yes, Joe. There was some weeks ago. I think it was at least 4 or 5 weeks ago, we did get a survey, and I got it. I think Ting had circulated it between me and the rest of our committee members, and I think I had some emailed remarks. And I don't think I saw an additional kind of follow-up round of remarks, or I think that was kind of the last time I saw it. But since you raised that, that maybe is something where we should, and apologies if I then should have kind of circled back with this, with the group here of this committee. But if that's something that feels like or sounds like that merits, some, which it sounds to me it does. I mean, I had a response there, but it didn't go. I don't think it went forward. So I've put that one down. So
Okay,
I will.
just a kind of a friendly FYI to look into that one.
Yes.
It came up in the other committee meetings.
Yeah, I'll mention it to the rest of the committee members and mention that it sounds like it would be useful for us to be able to kind of discuss and then maybe briefly present that maybe ideally at our next faculty senate meeting. Great, thanks, Joe.
Any other questions for Status and Welfare Committee? All right, we will move on to UEPC. Joe, I know you have several things for us today.
Yes, hi. First, we have a nomination which we're going to be giving formally to Elaine and Sue Healy, committee and committees. Amy Bro, Senator Bro is now Dr. Bro as of a week ago. She finished her dissertation. And so she has volunteered as that was sort of the barrier to why she didn't serve again. She was last year's co-chair of UEPC, if you might recall. And she had to step off because she was obviously defending her dissertation. She'll be the chair she volunteered to be the chair January. However, on the proviso that she gets a co-chair with her. So we'll have at least somebody who replace me when I go on sabbatical, but at least, I guess formally it comes from the committee on committee. So that's about the only, I'm just announcing on our end, we talked about it and she came forward. Okay, so that is that. We have 3 RMEs for you this month. Actually, 2 RMEs and an NUI. I'd like to start with the NUI first because if you haven't done these before, if you're new to the executive committee or even to the faculty senate, a new unit of instruction is a lot more laborious than a RME. It requires approval in Springfield from the IBHE, so it does go a little bit further and they have a lot more data they have to collect. Hence why it's 82 pages long. Okay, but this seems, I think, on balance, and the committee thought as well that the committee had a couple questions last week on this. One was, this is a mathematical version of statistics, and that there are other programs across the university that also have statistics programs. Was mentioned, for example, psychology would be a good example. There might be others, particularly in the sciences. And the concern was the committee went a little back and forth on this for a while. We ultimately recommended it unanimously, but there was about 20 minutes of discussion and debate about it. One factor was, should they have reached out to other folks around the university that may not be in the mathematical school, and create a more interdisciplinary statistics program? Or is that a process that happens after you get if you get a Bachelor of Science established and then you reach out? So I raised that. It seems pretty straightforward. There seems to be very little objection to creating a Bachelor of Science in statistics. The faculty already seem to be teaching courses required for it. It doesn't seem to require any real new university resources. But there was this one concern among members of the committee that there are other folks across the university that can lay claim to statistics rather than just mathematics. So I just raised that for your information. The committee voted unanimously again to recommend this. So I guess I'll open it up to comments or questions.
Well, I don't speak for all the sciences, but I would say that I don't think they would be taking anything away from the other units that are teaching statistics. But what I do think is it would be really valuable if they collaborated with those groups to maximize the benefits. I mean, the reason psychology and zoology and all these other programs teach their own statistics is because in the math department, what they teach is primarily theoretical statistics and not really applied statistics, which is what we need our students to take more of. And so basically our default has been to start teaching our own statistics because what they're teaching in math isn't serving our students. And so, if we could collaborate better, I think we could reduce some redundancy in the courses we're teaching and probably have them be a lot better courses if we could encourage more of that collaboration.
In economics, I imagine you do a lot of things with statistics.
Yeah,
too.
I'm sure they do.
Yes.
You teach your own courses because you're on closer to my end of the university.
Yes. And I can even share that we have a new major that was just got through this whole process, econometrics and quantitative economics. And econometrics is just the application of statistics to economics, my favorite course that I teach. And so we managed to get this through and to give a Bachelor of Science flavor to our economics. Most of our econ majors are not that quantitatively oriented. Just at our college and our course of life here, that's worked out that way. Not necessarily true at all universities, but we're really excited about this major. I think a stats, core, just hardcore math stats major is exciting and great. I mean, data science is exploding, and I think these people will be well poised. And we had the same experience in math courses that a lot of times our students will take them and there won't be as many applications. So we're happy to teach a course or two of our own. But I have to say, and I would be disingenuous to say, oh, I don't like a stats major if we just ourselves now have an econometrics and quantitative economics major, because we've just really tried to do that same thing as showcase, the strength in statistics. So anyway, I think it's to me, it's a great idea.
Back or thoughts on this?
So I'm going to ask a question, just out of curiosity. Although you state in your resolution that there is a projected growth in this field, is there growth in these sorts of majors across either Illinois or across sort of the nation? I just sort of.
So for what we could figure out, this is coming from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that 30% projection over 5 years. It's one of the other concerns raised by the committee was, and it was an unresolvable concern. We've mentioned it twice to the acting associate provost, and it seems to be just kind of floating. And the concern is this: we spent a six-figure contract on Gray and Associates. And yet we're not using the data that Gray and Associates provides. So it does ring. I know Patrick and others were questioning Gray and Associates last spring. It does sort of ring true to some degree the kind of concerns that you were having. We're basically a boondoggle. We're spending a lot of money on a resource that, and the concern of the committee was, if we spend this money on the resource, we should use their data. That data would answer a lot of your questions. With how many programs are there nationwide? What's the niche market for this program? Instead, what we seem to be doing as a university is we're flying somewhat blind on that. In the sense that we think because there is a 30% nationwide increase in the next 5 years, we also have a program. We also say it's sort of a blunt way to know whether there really should be a program. It's obviously a positive metric. It's obviously something you want to see, but it's blunt in some ways in terms of the precision that you can go into the weeds with whether you need a program or not. The other blunt thing that people mention is our peer institutions. So that was in there as well. What statewide programs, public or private. So all these things are required, and it seems like the form is required these are things required by the IBHE to kind of show what IBHE something. Thing we've been mentioned to the provost, and again, it's going to happen at the provost level. It's nothing we as a committee can do. I don't think the Senate can do anything about this. Are we using this data set or are we not? If we are using it, leadership's got to come from the top. It's then got to be put into our forms and practices, how we justify why we want to create a program. But so I can't resolve that. But so the answer is a long-winded answer to say maybe, possibly, sort of. I don't know.
Yeah. And I just, for me, this comes from a place of I understand the usefulness of things like biostats. And so I'm sort of ignorant when it comes to what the job market is going to be like for students that have this particular degree. So. But what about? Yeah, move on to Patrick.
Patrick?
I just put my question in the chat there, just.
Oh, no
curious if-
explanation whatsoever. We've had this happen before where there are a significant number of abstentions, and I think the Senate's rule of thumb was that an abstention needs to not be counted either as a yes or a no. You can't read into it anything. It can't read
No,
into
yes,
the second
no, I
version.
totally agree. I just was curious if, sometimes, like there's another, RME, for example, that we're looking at today, and the School of Law, I know, voted 19-0 in favor of the 3+3. So I'm just curious, two people voting against is not in any way, should not imperil the this NUI moving forward. But I was just curious if in your investigations or your discussions, you had any information as to the rationale for voting against from the actual school.
Two people didn't come forward. Sometimes you see this, certainly with when we did the restructuring a couple of years ago, the reorganization, there were dissenting memos written. I know in English, for example, there was one. I had to shepherd that through back in the Senate a couple of years ago. In this, neither of the two faculty colleagues came forward why they're against it. But we don't know. Mike?
Yeah, Joe, while we're on the topic, I'm just wondering if there is a way for us to incorporate some of the things that we would like to see in these proposals that maybe might not already be listed in there. For example, just what you brought up with the Gray and Associates information. If we could get something listed in there that said, we would like to see, the Gray and Associates data on this and how it would fit into the program. And then just another example of that I think we really need to think more about that we haven't been doing is on these new programs, actually communicating with potential employers in the industry and saying, hey, if we're providing graduates, what do you want those graduates to take? And if we could put something in there that demonstrated they've had that communication and they're developing a program that's, oriented toward these people that they expect to hire, these, that they expected the employers that they expect to have. That they're incorporating their input on what these degree programs should look like, I think would really be beneficial.
I think two things. One, let's ask that of the provost at 2:00, because I think it has to come from the top. And two, I could be very well persuaded to author a back of Senate resolution requesting changes being made to how RMEs and NUIs are packaged before they come to the Senate. I think it's certainly within our power of advocacy to advocate for that. I would say I'm in strong support of that because I feel really strongly if we're spending this money on this data set, we ought to use it. And I've seen the data set as a program coordinator. It's pretty robust. What they tell you about market, what they tell you about niche, what they tell you about, how even the names you give things. So I've seen some of this data in relation to history and history education and some of the other things I do. And we should use it. And there's no requirement to use it when you propose an RME or an NUI at present. So it really does probably have to come either of those two ways. Any other comments or questions about this first one?
I have a quick story, if possible. It's the story of Dan Eck. Dan Eck was a super Saluki and hung out in our econ department. And he was a math major and he was really smart. We even worked on a project for a while. He went off, I think, to University of Michigan. He is now, I think, still assistant professor at University of Illinois. He's great. He's great as a great guy. So I think he shows that our math department can produce awesome Salukis who, at his time, there was not a statistics major. I think it'd be really interesting if he had. But I'd also say that I don't think that this statistics major is necessarily going to boost like a huge number of majors going off necessarily to academia, although that would be like a really good part of it. But I think the majority of these students will be going into industry. And if they are, I think I'm also a proud member of the American Statistical Association, that I'm an associate editor editor of the American says this. And so I hear a lot about data science and its applications. And its data science is like really, well, it's a term, it's more like a job description than it really is like a methodology per se. So I find it interesting hearing these things from the industry related aspects of statistics. And it just makes me feel like I hope that this major will be one where perhaps there's an emphasis on opportunities for interning in the industry, and maybe making sure that there's the appropriate kind of sense of that job context of data science. And maybe it's built in, I didn't see it, but I would think things like an internship and opportunities to link up to, because otherwise, if you just say, I'm a statistics major and I got trained in classical statistics, may have very few prospects, just a cold walking out there into the job market. But if you were along the pipeline of this hot job area of like data science, then I think it could really be very exciting for the majority, I think, of these students, but really would be headed out the door, to the jobs like that.
I agree with all of that. Thank you. I would say we're going to have the director of the school present next week at the faculty senate meeting. So I think if you can bottle that and repeat that next week, hearing that from you particularly, I think would help make the case. Otherwise, I'd like to call a vote on this one.
Are you calling the motion?
Yep, call motion. I think unless there's other discussion of it, but it didn't seem like there was.
Second.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Okay.
Yeah, this seems just easier with this small group.
That's what I thought. There's no point in roll call for just this. Yeah.
All right.
All against?
Perfect.
Okay. So then I'd like to move to the RME that Patrick already anticipated a little bit, but that's great because it's also pretty straightforward. The RME to create a 3+3 accelerated law degree / bachelor of science / law degree between the School of Communication Studies and the School of Law. So we're seeing several of these being proposed in the last couple of years. We dealt with one a month ago in the Senate. This is largely being caused by the same factor, which is the student debt crisis in American society, particularly with professional schools. Law school tends to be a place where students rack up a lot of student debt. And so ways in which we can creatively deal with that curricularly, and also keeping and retaining our students from SIU, keeping them here into our professional programs, giving a pipeline. So that's what this is. And it's pretty straightforward. It got unanimous support at all levels. Are there any questions?
This one seems really straightforward.
And we're going to see new ones coming later in the year from political science. We're going to see another one coming probably from something more broader in college liberal arts. I'm just telling you. So you're going to, the university is likely to have 5 or 6 of these by the time it's done.
All right.
They're not really competing. Different students go in different ways, so it's probably not competing with each other in a way that would be perhaps harmful otherwise if you had too many of these pathways. All right, I guess I don't see anybody wanting to intervene here, so I'll call the motion again. Move to vote on this.
Second it.
Thank you. All right, all in favor, raise your hand.
All against? Okay, so then the final RME is to eliminate 2 concentrations within the Bachelor of Science in public disaster. Is it disaster manual or emergency manual? I always get that. It's emergency management.
Yeah.
This is mainly, they created these 3 tracks in 2016. They haven't received the students' demand for the track A and track the 2 they now want to eliminate. They're falling well short of where the 3rd one is. They have a degree program without any concentration, which you can fall back into. They also promise to teach out students that are currently in the tracks, but they want to now eliminate those 2 tracks.
My question is, does this affect any faculty in a negative way?
Apparently not. If you look at the proposal, they talk about how their faculty are paid through cost recovery. So it's mainly online courses. And so their contracts will just get shifted to probably the other curriculum instead. So it seems like nobody's being affected. It seems like minimal changes. The usual things when you close a program don't seem to be as problematic here.
Good.
I guess my concern is that these tracks were only created 6 years ago, and now we're closing them. But who am I, right? I mean, they thought we'd get perhaps we imagine we'll get students for things, and then it doesn't pan out.
I also wonder how much COVID might have affected that as well over the last couple of years.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
What's the disadvantage of just maintaining it? Are they teaching classes they normally wouldn't have to teach? If there's something.
I think the advantage of there might be two things going on here. One, they say that some of these courses only have 3 to 5 students in them, so it's a sense of efficiency. To be applauded that programs actually look into if they're wasting resources or if there's a way to better manage, better be efficient, be more efficient with their resources. I don't want to put it in the negative, I'll put it in a positive instead. So this is to be applauded. Programs don't always do a careful audit like this. So they're doing a careful audit and they're realizing, look, it's better to focus on the fire safety management that gets 120 students thereabouts. We have the other non-concentration that also gets students. But yeah, no, I mean, there's no real explanation of it.
I thought I read somewhere in that document that IBHE was requiring a certain number of graduates per year from each of the specializations, and they were not making the mark with the other two.
Yeah, so there is the rule. IBHE's got a general rule, which is you need to have 40 students per degree granting program, or 9 graduates a year. So those are, now you can make a case, as we all know, there are programs on this campus that don't have 40 majors, 40 students, and they don't have 9 graduates a year, and they still make a case for why they should still exist. But you have to justify yourself if you fall below those. I think in a rolling 3-year average. I mean, I wish Andrew were on the call because he would be able to confirm that, but that's my memory of what the IBHE rules are. So yeah, that very likely is what's happening as well. They're likely getting flagged right now because they're degree granting programs.
I think that's limited to programs though, and not concentrations.
Not concentrations. I'm not sure about that new
Sure
one.
it is.
Yeah. So that, in which case they're not nowhere near being in danger because they're at 130 or something.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
I think they know better than anybody else. If they feel that they're wasting resources by trying to maintain this and they don't want to do it, then the last thing I'm gonna do is get in their way.
Yeah, so I think that's my sense as well. So any other questions or comments about this? If not, I also would like to call a vote on it. Again, I guess if we need a second, but
I'll second.
so all those in favor?
Thanks. We'll raise hands.
Against? Okay, that also passed. Thank you, Bethany. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Joe.
Bethany, I have some new business that I think would be related to this committee. Would you rather wait till new business or go ahead and do it while we have this committee?
I think we do. Oh, we have this committee.
Okay, so it's something that Ken Anderson, one of our professors, brought to my attention today. His concern was that in his specific class, and I'll just use it as an example, that if a student misses more than 10 days of class, they automatically fail the course, with more than 10 unexcused absences. And his concern was he had a student that, had missed more than 10 days, but they were still prior to the 10 weeks where they are the PERS SARS office allows students to drop the course. And so when he contacted the student, the student was failing the course and the student just said, fine, I'll just withdraw. And it bothered him that a student that was failing a course and knew he was going to fail the course was able to withdraw with basically no ramifications associated with it. And so what he requested is that we modify it so that students would only be able to withdraw if they were within good standing, basically if they were passing the course. I told him I would pass it along. I'm not sure how I feel about it either way.
Mike, could you have him, I'll reach out to Ken as well, but if you can, it seems you brought it to you. Could you have him write up a one-page memo to UEPC? And because it would be something that has to do with catalog, and so we'd have to vet it first.
Yep. I am meeting with him this afternoon on a different topic, and I'll bring it up to him then.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Mike. And Joe, I think we're done with UEPC, correct?
We're done with UEPC, except one slight announcement. Next month, we will have probably a policy coming, a white paper coming from the registrar's office about cleaning up some language in the catalog. The language is about a 2.0 minimum to graduate. The catalog currently also says you need a 2.0 in the major. The university's never been enforcing this. There's no way to enforce it. So what we're working on it. We're sort of massaging the language, but it's eventually going to be that programs can set whatever requirements for their program as they see fit. And the graduation check will bounce back to the program.
Interesting. I look forward to seeing that.
Yes. So I just want to give friendly FYI about that.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right. So let's move on to the budget committee.
We have two items that we discussed at our last meeting. And just to be clear on one thing, so right now we kind of have two separate committees going. We have the Faculty Senate Budget Committee, and then the Budget Committee makes up the majority of the Provost Faculty Salary Compression Committee. And so I'm going to be reporting on both those, but in reality, they're two separate committees. For the Budget Committee, the only item that we have had on the semester that we discussed was the memo that UTing sent out this summer regarding the program directors and then 10 versus 11 versus 12-month salaries. We decided to wait and address that during the spring because we're spending most of our time with the other one. But right now, what our plan is to do is to this spring invite 2 or 3 of the school directors in and just ask them to justify to us why they feel the need to have a 12-month salary, get their feedback, and then kind of decide how we want to move forward from there.
All right, that sounds good.
Any questions or comments about everybody's good with that? Okay, then the second thing I want to report on.
I think Patrick has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Mike. Did you, the directors you're going to bring in do you have a sense of who they are, or they'll just?
We haven't decided yet. Our feeling was just to try to get 2 or 3 directors from different colleges, just to get some different perspectives.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, the second thing I want to report on then is the Provost Committee on Salary Compression. So we have had a couple of meetings, and right now we're actually set up to where we have a standing meeting every 2 weeks so that we don't have to try to schedule one every 2 weeks. And then we're counseling those if we don't need to meet in person during that time period. So we met twice since I spoke with you guys last. We have representation on that committee from every college, from the Tenure Track Faculty Association and the Non-Tenure Track Faculty Association, from the Graduate Council, and from the HR office, to make sure that we got a well-dispersed representation on that committee. We have met, as I mentioned, twice. We actually just got the salary data from HR Friday. They were really helpful in getting and responding to our requests very quickly. We have that in a format that I think we're going to actually start analysis on it next week. They provided a salary for each individual on a monthly basis that we can use for comparison. That's broken down by college, school, department, and rank. The idea is there is a University of Washington. There's a number of previous universities, of course, that have done a similar study. We compared a number of them and found that we felt was the University of Washington's approach was fairly simple, but I think it addressed our needs. And what they basically did was broke it down by academic unit that they felt was appropriate, and then compared the medians for each rank within that unit. They used a 7.5% justification of what they would expect to see between different ranks. We're going to use whatever our bump in salary is based on promotion. So I think ours is 11% right now, but I'm not positive. We're going to check into that. But assuming that we get a 11% bump in salary when we move from one rank to the next, what we're going to do then is compare the medians from each academic rank within each academic unit that we feel appropriate, and identify what proportion of the faculty then are above that, at or above that 11% increase in salary. Anybody that's less than 11% based on the rank below them will be considered compressed. And then in a few cases, we'll even look at salary inversion, is when somebody at a lower rank than you is actually making more than you are on a per monthly basis. So the idea will be that we will put all that data together and then develop a report that we will send to the Faculty Senate, the Graduate Council, and the administration, and then the unions to basically use as they wish. Of course, any negotiation on salary will be done directly through the unions. Questions or comments?
Oh, Yuting, did you have a question?
Yes, okay. Thank you very much, Mike, for your committees. In fact, you talked about two committees. One is the budget committee, another is the provost committee. Now, two comments or question. Okay, for the second one, could you tell us who are the chair or co-chair for the Equity Adjustment Committee?
So myself and Farhan are serving as co-chairs on it.
So two of you. And there might be, we might need more communication between Mark Morris, provost, and the chancellor, because obviously, the chancellor asked me about the equity issues, and then, as you know, about 1 week ago, we had a meeting with the provost and also Mark Morris, associate provost. So then I talked to you. I think you clarified this with them. So my understanding, or at least the impression they give us, is that okay, they need more representation from the other faculty member outside the faculty senate. I didn't know the process, whether we should send the faculty member or they can nominate. So anyway, you clarified this. And this morning, I just got an email from the chancellor. He asked us to give him an update about the equity issue, as well as like merit increase issue. So have you guys? I think you mentioned about the merit increase, right?
No, we did not. So I've met with Mark, or Farhan and I have met with Mark Morris, or communicated with him on 3 separate occasions to keep him updated on what we're doing. And okay, he hasn't mentioned anything about merit increase during any of those meetings. This is, in fact, he asked us to solely focus on the salary compression issue.
Okay, so maybe is it a good idea? Again, I will defer to you. Maybe is it a good idea? Maybe we can set a meeting with Mark Morris and you, myself, and so that we're on the same page.
Well, we can. I literally just met with Mark last week about it again and talked to him about it again. So at least he and our committee are on the same page. If you want an update, I can send it to you, or if you want me to directly send an update to the chancellor, I'm happy to do that also.
So why don't you send to me? Then I will work from there. Would that be okay?
That's fine.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions? Did you have another question?
No, I tried to know it down. Okay.
Any other questions for the budget committee? All right, well, if there are no other questions, then I think we'll move on. Thank you, Mike. I'm very excited to hear what the results are from looking at salary compression.
Yeah.
Very,
Well,
very excited.
So our goal is to have this finished by the end of this semester, the report at least drafted by the end of the semester for review.
Very good. All right. All right, so moving on to committee on committees.
Okay, I'm going to report on our committee for this session. So you got a little snapshot view from Joe Shremick. Our committee and committees would like to recommend that Dr. Amy Bro be the co-chair of the UEPC committee for beginning with the spring semester and phasing in this semester. So we voted unanimously to support that action, and we'd like to make a motion that she be ratified to in the role as co-chair of the UEPC committee.
All right, thank you for the motion. Is there a second? All right, thank you, Joe. And we will move on to a vote. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Thank you very much, Elaine.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else?
No, that's it.
Can I just add something really briefly with that? Could we
Please.
just say, I don't think this has to be a motion or anything. Can we invite Amy to the December executive committee meeting? Just so there's at least 1 month of transition in the 2 semesters.
Yes.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yes. All right. My train of thought was disrupted. Sorry, Elaine, did you have? Oh, I was going to ask if there are any other questions for the committee on committees. All right, if not, thank you, Elaine. We appreciate it. And we will move on to the governance committee. Patrick, I think.
No, we don't have anything to report. I feel like a real I don't know. I'm neglecting my duties, but we just don't have any. Haven't had any issues that have come up, and I guess we're still waiting on operating papers. I don't know when that's going to happen. But it seems as though that just keeps getting delayed and delayed and delayed some more. So
Yep.
until that occurs, I'm kind of just biding my time, I suppose. So thank you.
Yuting, you had a question?
Yeah, a question about the open paper for Patrick. Do you think it's a good idea you contact Mark Morris if the 2 open papers are submitted and they're sent to whatever way they sent? Based on our meeting discussion in the summer, I think you have a quick look and then send the recommendation to the faculty senator and also let Mark Morris know. Again, our input is or feedback is no more than just advisory. And as you know, for the entire university, you saw the newsletter, and only so far only 2 in the pipeline, and for the college only 1, which was rushed out. That means in the College of Health Human Science, which was approved a year ago. And it was called a lot of attention. Still, we have a concern. And for other colleges, okay, based on the meeting discussion and also the newsletter information which I mentioned, other colleges they have not done it or they're going to update it. So that's some issue. Maybe just maybe your governance committee help to just to stay on top of it. Would that be okay? Thank you.
Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, two things. One, I'm sure you're aware that College of Liberal Arts is working also on their college operating paper right now. No, you're not aware. Okay.
I wasn't, but thank you for telling me. You mean in the COLA Council? I'm assuming.
COLA Council has been reconstituted after a couple of years of falling into some kind of desultitude. So it's now come back, and they're working on operating papers right now. And there was a survey sent out to faculty recently asking about representation. What would they like in the new operating paper? And then I guess the question I have, though, that was just a comment for you, but the question I have is, where is your committee's currently in terms of thinking about a parliamentarian? Because we've been thinking about that issue for the greater part of a year now.
Well, I think how we left it was that this body was going to talk about whether we wanted an internal parliamentarian. That's my sense of it. And that we were going to discuss this, and that if we did want an internal parliamentarian, we would need to then rewrite a resolution to the faculty senate and say, this is what we'd like to do. We'd like to appoint this person. Then I guess we would need to send out another job ad. So that's my recollection of where that stands, that we were going to discuss whether we think that we should turn to allow, as I said, somebody who's a current senator to serve as parliamentarian. But correct me if I'm wrong, because as you say, it seems like we talk about it and then it goes away, and then we talk about it again. And so I would be happy for it to be concluded, believe me.
So I would suggest one thing to you, and because I'm stepping off the Senate in the end of the semester, so I don't have any strong preference either way. It's for the future Senate to think about. But we do have in our current operating bylaws the ability to appoint additional officers beyond the 3 that are elected every year. So if we as a Senate chose to make a Senate parliamentarian a at-large office, like the president, vice president, and secretary are, we're within our rights now. We don't have to write a resolution. It simply can be done, as far as I'm aware.
I guess my question to you is, how will that, by doing that, do you expect more people to be interested in the position? Because I feel like the major issue has been just a lack of interest.
Lack of interest, and then I think the concerns of the propriety of paying somebody for doing it.
Right. Well, yeah, we're not going to be able to pay someone, as far as I understand. So,
but there was some concerns about the propriety of, well, somebody if they're being paid a stipend, that therefore there's some kind of quid pro quo relationship with the executive council and the Senate. And remember, that was, if I remember correctly, that was an issue last year. Yeah. With the original proposal.
Yeah, that was, and I have to say, I understand the fear, but I also kind of felt that it seemed to me a little unfounded, just simply because I think at some level we have to have faith in our colleagues, which we all do, to act in an honest and transparent way. And if that's the only manner in which we're going to get a parliamentarian is by saying to somebody, well, all right, here's a $500 a semester or something stipend, then I think it would be worthwhile. I don't imagine, I mean, just again, speaking very hypothetically here, if it were ever, if we felt that person was beholden for some reason to the executive, I mean, we could address that. The Senate could vote and say, well, we don't want this anymore. We want to disband this position or remove this position. I mean, I have had people who have said to me, this is an unremunerated parliamentarian position, and I'm not interested in it for that reason. because it's not a compensated position, and it's quite a bit of work if you're coming from an outside and you're an expert in these rules. So I'm not trying to relitigate that issue. I'm really not. I think that we quickly decided, well, we're not going to pay the person, and I'm not certain that wouldn't have sped up the process. My suggestion would be we look for somebody internal to the Senate. If that is not successful, then we go back to the job ad and we think about attaching some money to this position. If it's $250 or $300 a semester, if we have the funds. I don't know. It's Bethany. Maybe they just don't exist. We don't have that as a faculty senate. I'm not certain. So anyway, I'll stop there.
So let's go quickly through these next questions, just for an interest in time. So Yuting.
Yeah. Three comments. Okay. First of all, we did. I think Josh knows that we advertised that job description twice. I think we almost received no application, right, Josh? Okay. And second, I also approached this semester, approached Jeff Lupansky as well as one of the law faculty senator, asked them to consider it. I did not receive any response. I even talked to Jeff Pansky over the phone about 2 months ago. I mean, asked him to reply to me by email. He didn't reply whether he would consider being interested, because if we have people to run at me, hopefully from our senator. And that's second observation report. And third, to some extent, maybe not this year, hopefully next year in the future, we need to modify our open paper a little bit. We need to have a paragraph about Senate process or function, so that it's just like we elect other officer or co-chairs. It's good one paragraph there that will make it more standardized. Again, I would defer to governance committee and other senators.
Okay, Joe.
Really briefly, I would just also raise another question here, which is the very fact that we've spent a year not resolving this may indeed indicate to us that this was a concern of ours last winter because of a certain meeting that happened and a certain lack of procedure being followed to the letter of that particular meeting, which then was addressed in later meetings. Problem then got sorted out, and now we're at a point where we run our meetings fairly well, and perhaps there isn't that much of a pressing need for this. And if that's the case, then maybe that's the resolution of this.
I sort of feel like we should have the discussion with the full Senate as well. I think this would be a useful topic, and will hopefully bring more clarity to how we proceed in the future. Go ahead, Patrick.
Sorry, I just posted what we have in terms of the resolution, just to show everybody that it's ready to go. And I just changed one thing, and I said the parliamentarian can be a voting member of the faculty senate, but will act as a referee of parliamentary procedure. Whereas in the previous resolution, we said that cannot be. So if we want to bring this before the Senate, it's fine with me. But I realize I just posted this in the chat 45 seconds ago. And so if we want to spend a little bit more time, what would you think if could we circulate this via email and then decide via email whether the executive committee would like to present this to the Senate at the next meeting? Or is that too soon? I don't mean to rush this.
So as far as I understand procedurally, I think that we have to vote as a body for it to be at the next.
Suspend the rule, right? To suspend the rules.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we could vote to suspend the rules.
Because it's formally not on our agenda for It wasn't put on our agenda a couple days ago, so I think technically it can't be advanced unless we suspend our rules.
Now,
Go ahead, Eugene.
okay. Question for Patrick. Okay. Have you governance committee approved this?
No, we have, I similarly asked, and I thank you for bringing that up. I didn't mean to act unilaterally. I believe I asked the governance committee about this, and I didn't receive a response. Meaning, when I say about this, I mean about an internal parliamentarian. So why don't let me withdraw that and suggest that I will send this to the governance committee, and then at our next faculty senate executive committee meeting, why don't we discuss it? How does that sound?
That sounds wonderful.
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you.
Great. So I think we'll move on to our last committee, which is our ad hoc committee on institutional ranking and educational quality. Do we have a quick report?
We are going to be trying to set up a meeting to talk about transition to new leadership after I step down from the Senate. The other sense of our brief meeting that was ad hoc today between Elaine, myself, and the other co-chair of the committee, Michael Hyland, was that we had more or less finished up our work last spring with the piece about students and student retention, Pell Grants, and that the place to work on next is faculty satisfaction and faculty retention data. And so we'll probably, once we transition to new leadership, the committee will probably focus those energies on that.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Joe? All right, I'd like to thank all our committee chairs for giving us our reports. And actually, I'm going to hand the meeting now over to Yuting, who I believe is ready to be at the helm. Yuting?
Well, thank you so much, Bethany, for coming for me. And thank you all for being here. I know the provost is here and Chancellor Nan is here, and all the business pretty much the same. And we have no new business. Without taking too much time, let us move to Chancellor Nan and Provost Kumarajo. So perhaps Chancellor Nan and Provost Kumarajo give us a brief update, then we'll have a Q&A. Would that be okay?
That'd be great. That'd be great. Thank you, Dr. Lee, and good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Hard to believe it's November 1st, so that the semester is flying. Feels like it was just August the other day. So few updates, and again, time I guess moves fast when you're having fun. So it's definitely going fast and furious. I have a few updates that I think would be helpful to you. And let me just go through a few of these. Tomorrow, if you have time on your calendar, there is a recruitment retreat that is occurring all morning and through the afternoon. I think it would be very helpful if you wanted to be a fly on the wall and just come by and see what our some faculty, staff, and deans are in this meeting. And they're setting the enrollment projections for fall of 2023. So it'd be really good if you've not been involved in one of those meetings to kind of hear that group work through now, what they are trying to achieve in each of these different areas, these academic areas, and then across the university. And so I think that'll be a really good kickoff meeting to that event. It will tell us what we're trying to hit in terms of enrollment. So that should be a pretty good meeting to get us going in that direction. The other is a retention meeting that will be held December 2nd, actually a month from the recruitment meeting. And so there we will focus heavily on a lot of the IBHE data that relates to retention, especially from students from underrepresented populations. And so we'll be focused on that. We'll have a full agenda that will be forthcoming. But I think that meeting will get us focused on some of the things that we're trying to put together to move the needle on some of the targets we've set on retention. So you'll hear a lot of about that going forward. I think that'll be very, very helpful. So we'll do those meetings probably every year. There'll be a recruitment meeting and a retention meeting. And so it'll just become part of what we do at SIU. And so if you want to be a part of that, you're welcome to it. Give some input, or just want to be, again, a fly on the wall. I think it'll be helpful to see that. Speaking of recruitment, retention, and enrollment, we're off to a really good start. We had an update today from Wendell and our group there. And so, we're feeling pretty good about just what our start looks like. But I'll tell you, we are really focused in on increasing our partnerships with high schools, with community colleges, with our extended campus. We had a good meeting last week in Chicago and at the College of Lake County and our University Center there, University Center at Harper. So we have some ideas about how we can increase enrollment in those areas, and looking forward to a lot of the recruitment that's happening this fall. But then spring, we switch to yield. Everything in the spring will be focused on how can we yield those applications that we've received coming in. And again, you'll see tomorrow, if you attend, sort of what the projected enrollment increases will look like from areas that feel like they can grow. That's something we are going to be focused on. So just stay tuned for that. We'll again have information, as we normally would, about enrollment that I think will be very helpful as you start to look and see what we are trying to do in that regard. Our equity study, I know Dr. Lee and Mark Mars and some others are going to be working on the faculty equity study in conjunction with, obviously, the Faculty Senate. I think the Budget or Planning Committee as well. So we'll really dig into what we look like as compared to each other across the university and the faculty ranks. Also we're going to be working with Faculty Senate, Dr. Lee, on the Faculty Senate or Faculty Merit Pool. Had some thoughts and ideas about how we would structure that merit pool, but we need to work ahead of the 2024 fiscal year budget if we're going to include something like a merit pool in there. So that's something that we need to work on now in terms of the format and the framework. But a lot of work, I think, that will happen there. Just so you know, last week, I want to publicly congratulate Mira. Mira accepted a position, and she can talk to you, I'm sure, about this when she gets on, but accepted a position at Cal State University Northridge, great institution. They've got a great president there, a very large institution. So I was joking with Mira. I said, I don't think she'll have to worry about all these enrollment concerns because they don't have many enrollment issues there. I'm sure they probably think they do, but compared to what we've been doing over the last couple of years, they don't have those kind of issues like we have. But I know that many of you know, and we'll send out here in just a moment, our provost search notice. We're going to send out a campus-wide memo just with some updates about the search. And thanks to Dr. Lee, he's leading the charge with Wick Kiefer. And I think they're doing a really good job of fielding these applications. And the 28-person committee, we're going to have the names of folks on that committee in the memo so you can see who's on there. A lot of cross university folks on there, but they have narrowed it down, looks like, to what we consider to be kind of a semi-finalist pool, and we're going to select, or they're going to have those folks do some interviews and to come in, and so we can get an idea about who they are. And we really hope to have someone identified as early as before break. And so we're going to be moving pretty fast between now and the end of the semester, and hopefully that person can begin in January. And so that's a wishful thinking timeline, but looks like right now we've not hit any speed bumps. So hopefully we can get to that point. Mira has guaranteed for me that she will be here through commencement at least on the 17th, and maybe even some time after that. But knowing that she's got to do some back and forth stuff between here and California, that's a hop, skip, and a jump, and another skip to get out there. So again, congratulations to Mira. I think she's 26 years, Mira, does that sound right? 26-year stint, so knows where all the bodies are buried here and all the institutional history. She is very well aware of that, and I think I told the president this, and I think Mira will be a great provost for that institution, and I know Mira's aspirations to become chancellor or president will happen after that as well. So I think it's a great experience that you'll get out there. And again, Mira, congratulations to you and all that you've done here. And we sure appreciate you. Our CIO search, we should have a decision on that as early as this week. Had 3 candidates in there. Dr. Liu, I think, was chairing that particular committee. And so I hope to make a decision on that. I received feedback on all 3 candidates, and all good feedback, but we'll only can decide on one of them. And so that'll happen here shortly. You'll hear some announcements about that. The last piece is HR. We're doing a search. That was what we consider to be a failed search. We are going to use Wick Kiefer in this case now. HR has a lot of things that we need to clean up and take it from a mom and pop shop to more of a really full functioning HR department. And so we need a real strong leader in that area. And so we decided to go outside and search, give the services of a search firm to really help us bring someone in and attract a person who can help us work through some of these things. Final piece is you'll hear about our active shooter drill. Everywhere I've worked, we've always done or conducted these active shooter campus-wide scenario drills. We're going to have one this spring in April that will function just like a real active shooter. And we'll give you some advance notice on this, but we'll have scenarios, we'll have roles that we play all the way from the actual scenario when it kicks off or begins, all the way through post interviews of things that we would do with Jim Potter and the media in terms of how we would respond. The cabinet will be engaged and involved in it as well from the emergency standpoint of where we go, where we meet, how we interact, and obviously your local authorities. So don't want to alarm anyone, but it is time for us to really, if you ask me and a few other leaders, what do we do with active shooter scenarios? People would not be able to tell you. So we need to make sure that we at least have some activities that occur here to at least give us a better idea about how we would handle those types of situations. We've been trying to do this on a full scale for about a year. And we've done smaller ones, but they've not included the cabinet and some of the other key folks across campus. So they've been compartmentalized really to buildings or areas. And so this will be a full-fledged campus active shooter scenario. I know we're going to learn some things that we're not doing, and we have a consultant working with us, so probably give us a few bad marks on what we didn't do right, but that's what we're looking for. So it's okay if we don't do everything right, because we're trying to learn what we need to do in the event that this happens. So on that note, it's November 1st. It's moving fast. I know that you need a break. I know our faculty need a break. Our students need a little bit of a break. Hopefully the Thanksgiving holiday will give them that break where they can get away a little bit and relax, and then come back to the final couple of weeks of the semester. But on that note, I'll stop and be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions?
I see Bethany's got a hand there.
Yeah, it's more of a comment, and I wanted to say thanks for the active shooter drill, actually, because I don't know about my fellow colleagues here, but in the last few years, I've done a lot of thinking about what ifs and going into classrooms and thinking, if I had to shove a table in front of a door, could we do it? Where would we hide? Where would we go? So These are things that are really on, at least on my mind, probably on other faculty's minds as well. So having a drill and then learning where we can either participate or do better would be helpful and give me more peace of mind as I teach. So thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna, I hate to say this because it'll sound like we're not being transparent, and I promise we are, but when we encounter even some of the students, believe it or not, that we've had to send home. I mean, these are students we've suspended just for various threats or fights or anything like that. As you know, we're a day away from anything happening like we're reading about. I mean, that's just the reality of it, no matter how prepared we are. But I think if nothing else, we at least need to be on the same page with how we're going to react, especially if it's, yes, faculty and staff and administrators and our police. Everyone at least needs to know what to do. And I think that's the overall goal, is that we not scare people half to death, but that we get people involved in an activity that is simulated, but is as real as we can make it, so we can learn from it. So I think that's part of what we're going to be focused on going forward. So I'm glad you said that, because I get a sense that's probably the case in a lot of different areas and departments.
And to your comment about students, so I'll probably assume as well as we've all had that student where you didn't want to be in your office with that student with the door closed, right? So again, I think it's beneficial for all of us, even though it might be sort of depressing and almost doomsday, feel to it. It really is appreciated if these things are something that are paid attention to and then driven at the administrative level. So thanks.
Yeah, we'll do that. We opting in, we'll talk a little bit about that in the next couple of weeks with safety opt-ins, whether you're getting text alerts, email alerts, or there's just some things we see that we can clean up before we get to that drill that may help us too. So stay tuned. Hey, Joe.
Joe, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to raise something that's come up. As you might know, I'm the co-chair of the Education Policy Committee. And we were just discussing an NUI that's going to be put before the Senate next week to create a Bachelor of Science in Statistics. And the concern that the committee had a week ago, and also the Executive Council had an hour ago today, was the current process to write an RME coming out of the Provost office or to write an NUI coming out of the Provost office. The paperwork does not require any program to look at the grade and associates data. So for example, we had 82-page document for the NUI because of all the documentation that Springfield needs, that IBHE needs. And one of the things that we currently look at is we look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. What are their statistical, where do they think the employment growth is? We also look at peer institutions, but something that the committee felt and that we also, all of us here felt earlier today, was that these are somewhat blunt instruments. In other words, you can say that there's a 30% employment projection in 5 years. That's according to the federal government. And you can also say that 2 of our 8 peers also offer this, but the other 6 do not. But what Gray and Associates data shows, and I know I've seen reports and I've seen what they can do, how powerful the data is it shows market niche in a way that neither of those metrics can answer, rather than just in a broad about kind of going around the corner kind of way. So I'm curious, and we were wondering as a group here about an hour ago, we were wondering about this. What would be the best way to get this institutionalized on this campus? I assume that since the university has a contract, we would want programs to use this data. That's why we bought it. Do we write a sense of the faculty senate resolution and pass it through that way, or do we just implement this at the provost office and do it that way?
I mean, my recommendation would be to ask it at the provost office, because you cannot, like, if you put it into that document, then when Gray and Associates, just say by chance goes away, then you're stuck with not knowing how to move it forward. So you have to be like careful about cementing some of those things. But I think asking for that data is fine when we have the subscription. Let's say tomorrow Gray and Associates as a company goes away, then you're kind of like stuck with something that's documented, and that will slow down the process at that time. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, something you, right now, since we have it, I think you should use it because it's a valid tool that we can use. And as you mentioned, Joe, it's got the data in there that helps decide, really what you may want to think about doing or not doing. As Mira said, yeah, if it goes away, there's some heads up maybe we could give that said, well, this is now the new tool, if we have one at that time, that can be used. But we were talking about it the other day up in Lake County and some of the other places where we're thinking of expanding programs, existing programs, to expand them out. And some of which we said the data suggests we should, and others we said, hey, not up here, we ought to stay away from it because the market's either too flooded or it's not really the demand we think it ought to be. So I think it's a great tool for that use.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
I'll just very briefly follow up on that, which is the other RME we're putting before the Senate next week, just is we're closing down concentrations in a major that were only opened up 6 years ago. So in other words, I think it behooves programs to look at that market niche, because we create things all the time and then we realize students don't actually use, there isn't the foot traffic for it. So we best practices. I hear your point about, if we don't sign the contract, then, but I'm not sure what we have at present, as speaking as co-chair for the last 2.5 years, I'm not sure what we have at present answers the concerns that a lot of faculty have, particularly when new programs are being created in the context of our university having, let's face it, we're in austerity, we're having trouble staffing the things we can't do everything we want to do. And so having, just getting the message, how do we get that message out to our colleagues so when they want to create or want to justify their expansions, how to actually use that data would be, I think something, speaking from the committee perspective, would be so useful.
Maybe it is a piece, Mira, that is kind of a refresher on the Grays piece, kind of a recap of how we used it and how even they can use it inside of that process. Maybe that would help. I agree with Joe. It sure would help people work more efficiently and maybe even not get too far into the work, realizing that,
somebody's already done the data.
Yeah. So maybe there's a refresher opportunity on this Grays piece that we can do and help promote as people are taking these broad looks at what they want to do. That may help.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah. Thank you, Joe, for your question, and appreciate the feedback and response from Johnston and Provost Cumaracho. The next one, question from Mike.
Along that same topic, Amir, this probably should be directed to you. I think it would be really valuable if on the new programs, especially maybe even in the Form 90s, if the individuals that were promoting those programs could demonstrate that they've actually communicated with potential employers and tried to get feedback from those employers on exactly how these new programs should look, the classes they would expect, what they would like to see in those. I think that'll go a long way in preventing the scenario Joe just described, with somebody putting concentration up and disappearing in 6 years. So I'm not exactly sure what would be required to do that, but I think that would be helpful from our standpoint.
Yeah. I think there's that section on justification, and that could be modified to say, example, data from the labor Bureau of Labor Statistics or Gray and Associates or Burning Glass. I mean, there are different places that you can go for that data. And then I think justification could also be like employer demand and for curriculum. So I think that can be built into so you have some options and don't box yourself in.
Yeah, and yeah, I agree. And just demonstrate that they've had that communication. To me, that's the important part, is they to demonstrate they've actually communicated with the potential employers and let them have the input in what the curriculum should look like.
It's a good piece there, Mike. I hadn't thought about that, but that's what we get all the time is how is this, you know, it was just an advisory board meeting the other day, same thing with our programs is will they actually get students jobs? Do they lead to jobs?
Sometimes the chancellor, we see things at the UEPC, we see proposals put forward that are relying a little bit more on anecdotal data about job placement rather than what Senator Eichholz is suggesting, which is much more concrete than that.
So, any other questions?
Yeah, particularly with the, it would behoove us, particularly with the types of programs that seem to be being created, like emerging fields, to have that actual data be incorporated somehow in the document. Thank you.
Okay. If there is no other question, maybe Provost Comaracho, could you give us some update about the academic area? I know last week we sent out the announcement about the College of Business search, interim search.
Sure. First of all, thank you, Chancellor Lane, and all of you have been giving me good wishes. I appreciate that. It's not easy to leave SIU after a long time because SIU has given me a lot of learning opportunities that have helped me secure the position that I have. So I owe a lot to the university. In terms of just updates, the one that Dr. Lee just mentioned, the College of Business and Analytics Dean, Terry Clark, has indicated that he would like to step down at the end of the semester. So we are initiating we have initiated interim dean search, and that will be followed by a national search for a permanent dean. So that was the COBA announcement. In other updates, yesterday was the deadline for the ethics training. Unfortunately, we still have several hundred people who haven't completed it. So our job today, starting today, was we have been chasing everyone down, but the deadline was still there. They still had time. But after October 31st, the deadline has now officially passed. So we are trying to get everyone done. So this includes undergraduate students who may be student workers, graduate students who have GA assignments, as well as non-tenure track and tenure track faculty and staff and so on. So that's the work that we do every November. The spring registration has opened, and students are beginning to register, and we will be doing follow-up work to see how we can get all students registered, particularly those who have holds, such as medical holds or their transcript holds and so on. So that is the work that we're doing for spring 2023. A question that I've gotten here before, and I said I didn't have the data, but now I do, and that is the hires for fall 2023. So we have approved 42 faculty hires. I think there were about 44 that came open. And this is a moving target because any day we can get an announcement, like just last week, not even last week, like 2 days ago. So that would be maybe Friday or Monday that one more person is leaving. So that number of 44 goes up to 45. So that's kind of, in that sense, a moving target. And the 42, if we make a decision to replace, then that becomes 43. But that's the best estimate we have as of today. And then also the other update is that in terms of advisement, you may recall that in 2017, Chancellor Montemagno had centralized advisement. Now we're going to a decentralized advisement. So all of the chiefs will be reporting to the deans. And we are also going to keep some of the features of centralized. So the chiefs will be meeting. They indicated they'll continue meeting every other week so that they can get everyone on the same page. We are also, as part of the centralized, brought the off-campus and on-campus to talk to each other. So they are wanting to continue those meetings. So we're going to keep the best of both worlds as we go with the decentralized advisement. So we are combining and integrating the best features of both. So that was an update on that. Then the next one is about digital signatures. We are trying our best to incorporate digital signatures as fully as possible at 2 levels. One is just signing digitally, but then the other one is initiating a workflow that is digital. So initiating the workflow that is digital will take a little bit more time because we are entering into an agreement across the system whereby we are going to invest in this software that will allow us to do that. So that will take a little bit more time. And so that's something that we're looking forward to, where we can get things processed faster. Then the other one is the enrollment management workshop that we're going to have tomorrow. And we are going to be hearing from the various colleges about how they, what their experience was in their projections for this fall, what lessons were learned and how those lessons are influencing the projection for fall 23. And then what strategies we're going to use to increase recruitment and yield, as well as retention and graduation and persistence. So I think that that is my update.
Okay, thank you, Provost Comaracho, and again, congratulations to you. We're going to miss you, and thank you very much for the update. Any questions for Provost Comaracho? Okay, Senator George Remick.
I don't know if it's directed to Mira or whether it's also a question for Austin. I asked about a month ago about a concern that we were having in our cooperative PhD program in history, and I was just curious if there has been any further update. You mentioned, Provost, that you would be meeting with your counterpart over in Edwardsville about the issue of tuition reciprocity. Do you have anything you can report about that, or is it still ongoing?
Yeah. No, the last I saw is like all these emails that I responded to and participated with the Vice Chancellor here and the Vice Chancellor there and Jonathan Bean. So I don't know what the final outcome is, but I put them all together, gave my 2 cents of input, and I'm hoping that that situation will be resolved, because that was the tone of the email exchange that I was seeing. So I wasn't looked into the final decision yet.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mira, would Garish have some info on that?
Yeah, I can reach out to him and see.
We can see, yeah, he probably would have something there.
Yeah.
It's not just my program. I think there's probably 6 or 8 cooperative PhD programs at this point across our university. So if we can set a precedent for this, it will benefit all 8 of them.
Yeah.
It really is this common sense solution anyway, just to classes at both campuses.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Any other question for either Provost Comaracho or Chancellor Nan?
I was going to tell Patrick, we are, Will is getting that data on times on student demand for courses. Haven't forgot, I know he's pulling that, especially now as we think about, you know, not so much spring, but maybe fall 2023. It's FY, so we'll stay looped up on that.
Great, thank you for following through with that. I appreciate it.
Okay, so any more questions? Well, any question for me, because I appreciate it, Junie, you reading the reports for me, and if you have any question, you can ask me. Otherwise, you know, we're going to have a motion to. Oh, okay, Joe. Great, Joe.
I didn't want to really, because we're going to have a whole recruitment workshop tomorrow, and I think very much the idea, whoever came up with the idea of having a retention workshop, been long overdue on this campus to get our heads together on that issue too. I just wanted to kind of, since we have time today, I have a little story or a little context here for the Chancellor. Back in 2020, during the worst part of the pandemic, my department decided to go big and create an online degree program. And really can't complain about most things with the university. We got extra funding from CTE to get Quality Matters certification. I'm very thankful to the Provost Office. We're very thankful to the Provost Office for facilitating that. I think the concern we're having, and I just want to start with, before I get to the concern, to start with the other part of it, which is that we've managed to bring 18 students fully online over the last 2 years, which for us is about a 10% increase than what we had before. And they're not even competing with the same students. So we're trying at this point to expand it. So how do we get included in the Saluki partnerships and all the various things that you're doing right now with other online degree programs? Because students don't have to leave their home. They don't have to come to Carbondale for this. It's a fully online degree. So how do we get, because we're the only ones in liberal arts that are doing this right now. How do we get ourselves part of your package?
That's pretty easy. So I would say, Joe, you need to talk with Josie Rawls.
Okay.
Present what you just said to Josie. And she is our sort of our articulation connector with all things community college transfer related. If you're trying to get it on the Saluki step ahead, if that's what you're trying to do.
Trying to do a lot of things. We were told a year ago, I went to a big recruiting workshop all day on Zoom about a year ago with Extended Campus. And they were telling me, these are all of our recruiters everywhere in the country. They were telling me the average student is 34 years old, probably male, probably has 2.5 years of college, dropped out, and just needs credits, just needs a degree to finish. They have credits from all kinds of things, and they just need some way to get a degree.
Yeah, you're exactly right. As a matter of fact, our meeting in Chicago the other day was about that. There's a few institutions that are partners at the same university center sites that are doing that. They're more degree completion driven programs. So if you get with Josie.
Okay, so Josie Rawls is who I need to talk to. Okay.
Yeah, and just tell her, tell her about the program and what you think it can do to be a nice transfer partner program. And it doesn't take much to get it added to it. We've got 10 now, Mira. I think 10 programs. We just added 2 more. We added RN to BSN, and I think we added an education program as well. So
Yeah, that's like 8. Yeah.
yeah, so just, if you can do that.
Appreciate that. I did not know who to contact about that to kind of, because, we work with Extended Campus, but not, what do we do to get beyond that, to market it further? Because as I said, we are just with the limited marketing we've been able to do, about a year worth of marketing, we've grown our major 10% just from that.
Well, yeah, it's Josie first, and even on the marketing, we can save you some money because our UCOM is earmarked, or at least we're directing them in areas like Extended Campus marketing only. So if that program fits, it's one that we could help you market. You don't have to find your own funds, if you know what I mean. You just get in on the bigger picture of Saluki Step Ahead, and that marketing saves you money.
Thank you very much, Joe, for your question. Thank you for your response, Chancellor Mann. And next question from Sunita Besni, reader.
This is just for you, Ting. I was just wondering if we would do another Survey Monkey this month about the mode of the upcoming month Senate meeting.
Oh, okay. Josh, maybe we can do the same. Shall we do it? Okay, good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mike?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment on that. So I've had multiple faculty now tell me from various committees that they are not comfortable with this approach to deciding if we're going to meet in person. And it's simply because, and I think most of us would agree, that the majority of faculty on Senate would rather meet online than in person, because they're just not that interested in what's going on. And so if we continue this, we'll never meet in person again, because they're just going to continue to vote to meet online. I think we really need to reconsider this approach.
Well, Mike, I hear you. I think this is something we need to debate. Maybe if we have time, this November meeting, then
Well,
we
we've got
can
the
have
time right
in-person.
now.
Well, what's your proposal?
I propose that we meet in person and then offer an online option that we already have to do because of the medical school, for the people that don't want to meet in person.
Okay, so any other discussion or any?
Assuming we can get a large enough room for, but the CDC has changed its whole guidelines. I mean, a year ago, this would not have been feasible, would not have been acceptable.
I'm open to the
subsequently, the CDC has not said we need as much social distancing space. More and more people are vaccinated. I agree with Mike. I think, we should try to somehow resume to normal again.
I'm open to the option. I'm thinking that definitely we need in spring, we need to resume in person. Perhaps, December is kind of pretty much with final exam, creating also a graduation pretty much, and also find a big room with technology. Again, okay, this doesn't mean we cannot accomplish it. I just think that, Bethany and Josh, if you think December we can find something we can accommodate, I'm open to the hybrid format. And definitely my suggestion that in January, February, whatever, in spring, we need to back to normal.
I agree with Mike. And I can, so I had a big room reserved for the full Senate, but it sounded like it was a lecture hall and it sounded like people weren't interested in that. So I canceled that. But we can,
Can you reconsider that? Well, make sure do you think it be still available? Could you revisit?
I can
check with them.
Yeah, I can ask, but I can also, we can also look at other rooms as well. That was a really huge lecture hall. So, I wanted to, give people the space to socially distance. But if we don't need something that big, then we can certainly look into some of the other conference spaces around campus. Because if we're doing everything by Zoom, then, all you need is a computer that has the internet and a screen. So,
Julie?
What did the med school do prior to COVID and all the Zoom meetings? How did they join?
I can answer that. So they use a conference call system. So the med school had their own internal conference call system that they could connect to specific computers in specific rooms. But they're phasing that out. So like we used to use that for one of my classes. And we don't do that anymore because they're phasing that out for either Zoom or WebEx. So, I think Zoom is actually a better option because it's more flexible than the conference call system used to be.
Because I don't know that we would get any more people. If Zoom is an option, then those people who are not wanting to participate now will just still continue to Zoom. I mean, it's still presented as an option. That's what I was thinking.
I agree completely, but those people don't take part for the most part in the meeting anyway. They sit and listen and maybe provide a comment every once in a while. So if they're sitting on Zoom doing the same thing there, it really won't matter. The people that do want to participate, though, can just function much better and much more efficiently if we're in the same room.
Any other comments? So my suggestion is that, we will have a discussion for obviously November 15th. We are going to have a full Senate meetings. We're going to have a discussion about December's meeting. And I definitely advocate that we should back to normal in spring, if not December. That's my option. But in the meanwhile, we need to, if you do not want to have, let's say, monkeysurvey.com, that's fine. The Provost Kumaracho?
Yeah, I just want to offer a suggestion, like in case you decide to be in person, if you need the N95 masks, we do have many of them. So if someone has a concern and say that, I'm hesitant, at least that you have that mask available if you want. They're available in the provost office if you want.
Okay, very good. Yeah. Okay, I think that's something we need to share with the senator next or the week after next. Okay. So where shall we go from here? We obviously, if I understand you accurately, we do not want to have a monkeysurvey.com continue. We're going to make decision at the next faculty senate meeting about December, and definitely at least more likely we're back to normal in spring. Okay, Joe.
I would like to suggest perhaps we suspend the rules and put a motion before the Senate next week, exactly what Michael has suggested, and decide it next week in the full Senate. Now, to do that officially, because we don't have a parliamentarian, but I'm going off of my basic knowledge of Robert's Rules of Orders, it wasn't put on the agenda today, so we would have to vote first to suspend the rules. That would require, according to Robert's Rules of Order, a 2/3 majority of us. And then we could then add it to the agenda, as Michael has suggested, and that we make a decision one way or the other about this next week.
Do you think that, let's say for all the business, we will add just a motion? Have a motion second?
It's not technically old business. It's new business. It was not put in the agenda sent out a few days ago. It would violate the Illinois Public Meetings Act too, unless we suspended the rules.
Usually the old business is always there. It's just put what kind of content.
It's not old business. It's not something old business is something we were discussing a month ago and then tabled and then brought it back. That's the definition of old business. This is totally a new business item.
Okay, that makes sense to you in the new business, or is it back to normal for full faculty senate meeting with option of Zoom? Then we'll have a motion, second vote for new business, or is this what you mean, or what? I mean,
what I mean is, I think what I would suggest here is we're motioning to suspend the rules to then allow Michael to put the resolution he's just suggested to the floor of the full Senate next week. Rather than use Survey Monkey, let's actually vote as a voting matter on the Senate, and then we decide it one way or the other. Is that reasonable to you, Michael? I'm just trying to. I understand your concern about getting this set up.
Wait a second. Okay, now we have the regular agenda here. Unless last minute the agenda is sent out, then we can suspend the rule. Otherwise, we can put it on the agenda. We can vote, have a second motion.
Oh, no, we can't. We have to suspend the rules because it wasn't on the agenda for today. In other words, we're violating our rules for this meeting.
No. We're talking about, remember, okay, old business, new business here. So anyone from governance committee or committee on committee, anyone?
Can we make this motion as new business?
Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting we suspend the rules and then we go and put this on new business.
Well, any senator can bring a resolution at any point in the meeting of the faculty senate. I mean, that's just it. If we're talking about something issuing from the faculty senate executive committee, that's a different matter. But if Mike wants to say, I propose this resolution that we alter how we're proceeding with the determination of whether to meet online or in person, he is totally within his rights to do that.
Without having it previously been on the agenda.
Right. I think,
he
that's exactly right.
Yeah, he's just, it's not for something to issue from us as a body, that's a different scenario than Mike making this motion and then Joe also saying, and I agree with this for these reasons, and then other people chiming in. That anybody can, I mean, you can make any motion that you want. Any senator can do that at any meeting. But I don't quite know, just to the point, I don't know how we would have this come from the Faculty Senate Executive Committee. And that might be more controversial, to be perfectly honest with you, if we're saying we think as an executive committee, we should meet in a different manner, a different modality. That I'm not certain we can, I
you.
don't know the rules of that.
What was the process that occurred that allowed us to go from in-person to virtual meetings?
COVID probably.
Right, but was there a formal process? All we're doing is going back to normal. We're just removing that, and my guess is there was no formal process because the senators never had a chance to vote on it. So I don't see what the issue is of just going back to our normal process and why it would even need to be voted on by faculty senate.
That's a good
Okay, any
question.
comments?
Yeah, I don't remember. It
I
feels
wasn't
so
on the
long
Senate.
ago.
I wasn't on the Senate then. I got elected during summer. I got elected a few months later. I don't remember.
Josh, can you look at the records for that? Probably would be March 2020, February, March, April, to see if there's any official, because we would have had to suspend the normal rules in order to do that, officially.
We've
I
had a
think,
lot of votes over the past months, over the past year. I mean, under what terms have we had those votes?
For
If we were going to have in-person versus Zoom meetings. I feel like we have a vote every month or every other month or so. What are we going to do next?
Certainly unofficial polls like a Survey Monkey, that's unofficial.
Okay.
right, it's not, they're not associated with the resolution.
Well,
It's voted in
my
the full Senate
suggestion,
though before.
So I think I have two suggestions, and Patrick, I think, gave a really good clarification. I think
After this meeting,
I think if we were to say, this comes from this is part of the official agenda that we're sending out on Thursday, later this week, to everybody in the Senate. My original point still stands. You have to suspend the rules at this point to make it part of the official agenda, because otherwise it's out of order for us to discuss it today. If you were to simply say any senator can make this resolution on the floor next week, then that is in order, because that is always allowed. So I think, thank you for explaining that, Patrick, because they're two different things.
well, I think, let me put this way. We only have about 5 minutes left, okay. I think my understanding or my suggestion is that, okay, any senator can make a motion. It's a matter of when and where they make the motion. That's point one. And second, and I do not see the point to suspend the rule, because unless, okay, the agenda itself, okay, we send out to disagree, and then we totally let's cancel certain item or add some item. Unless, okay, we want to add the item to back to normal, then it should be part of a new business. If this is a new business, if it's not old business, it's got to be new business. It's part of business.
President Yutsing, why don't you, Patrick just wrote something in the chat there which clarifies everything. And you're just putting out.
Patrick, could you read it with the notion?
Oh, can you, I'm looking at the operating paper right now, and I'm just trying to see if there's anything relevant for us. I'm looking for that language about the individual senator making individual senators making motions.
it's still not clear to me why the faculty senate has to approve us going back to in-person meetings. If that's the case, we may never meet in person again.
True. I think what I'm just doing is making sure, Mike, I agree with you, and if we don't, but if we need a safe harbor somehow, it's like that, it's just simply to give us a safe harbor either way.
Do you think, let's say for this issue, which committee should, is governance committee or faculty status welfare committee should come to present it? I just think that, okay, because this happened 2 years ago because of COVID-19, And I know at that time I was not on the faculty senate 2020, I think in February or March, I was not in the faculty senate. I think Elaine and Sung Hish was there. And
there.
many of, oh, you were there. Okay, Bethany. Okay. So
Patrick
because
just
the
dropped
government,
Just put something else in chat.
Sorry, I don't mean to keep chat bombing everybody. I'm just trying to figure this out because I think I see what Mike's saying about, well, why do we have to have a resolution to change how we're meeting? And this just says, unless the faculty senate decides otherwise, the regular meetings will take place in the afternoon. So I suppose we would have to extrapolate a little bit from that language to say that the faculty senate decides how the faculty senate meets, right? And obviously the operating paper, it wasn't envisioning COVID. So I don't know if this is telling us that we do have to. I think that, oh, sorry, I keep interrupting somebody. Go ahead, sorry.
we only have 2 minutes left. Okay, unless you are going to vote to extend the meeting, otherwise.
Well, I propose we extend the meeting till 3:05.
Let's get this resolved. Let's one way or the other. Let's figure this.
So
Okay,
moved.
anyone second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, go ahead, Patrick.
Well, I'm just trying to see if this gives us any, if this clarifies it. I guess, Mike, the problem we're going to run into is that people are going to, since we've been voting on it, people are going to say, we've been voting on it. Why aren't we still voting on it? How we're meeting. And so I'm just anticipating there's going to be controversy. And I'm fine meeting in person. It doesn't, I think hybrid meetings are a little useless, which is not to say they're useless for the person who is zooming in.
That's exactly right. Well, I'm just reading this. I don't see anything in here that directs how we do this. Clearly, it was some type of executive decision that was made for us to meet virtually, probably coming from the executive committee, because the rest of the Senate wouldn't have been able to vote on it. So it makes no sense to me that that same committee, the executive committee, can't make the same decision of saying we're meeting back in person.
Do you think that, let's say, again, within about 5 or 6 minutes left, okay, I suggest that, okay, we definitely would like to meet in person, or at least hybrid in spring. And for December's meetings, okay, obviously, maybe due to technology, space issue, we're not sure we can get it. I mean, we do not want the last minute, okay, to run into the problem. And we can make this decision and then present to the faculty senate in December. No, I'm sorry, in November 15th, right? Next week, next Tuesday, we do not have a meeting. And then at least that give Josh, maybe Bethany enough time to looking for options. Yes, Joe.
I think actually the way to proceed here is this is an executive committee decision, and unless overturned by the full faculty senate, and you put it on the agenda, we have precedent for this. We made a decision last year about a resolution that got tabled and was not going to be voted on. And unless the Senate votes to the contrary by majority vote to overturn the executive committee, the decision stands. Because we've already had that precedent a year ago and something else with another item. I forget what it was. There was a time last year when the executive committee made a determination, and there's a line you put on the memo. This is the decision reached by the executive council. You explain briefly what that decision is. And then you allow the Senate the opportunity, if they want to vote to overturn it, but otherwise it stands.
Okay. Do you hide? Do you?
That would be the way to do it.
Okay, Pi, do you feel comfortable, let's say, the week after next, 2 weeks from now, either you committee or faculty status committee to put this as a resolution. Again, they got to from some committee
Why does it have to be a resolution?
or may someone to, I mean, where shall we go? I mean, let's say who is going to make a motion and where? That's the issue.
That's not what I just said. There's no motion, not what Dr. Eichbold said either. There's no motion needing to be made. It's simply announced. And if a senator objects to it, they put the resolution striking it. But otherwise, we go forward. We go forward with the decision.
What, Joe, if I understand you accurately, it's something to announce. What is something? We need something to be specific.
Something to be announced is that we intend to meet as a full Senate in person in December.
I think that's authoritarian without, and some senators, why do you make this decision? What's the rationale? What's the base? Because, I mean, we got to, I think we got to have a kind of discussion.
Well, it would provoke a discussion so that you're going to have a discussion about it one way or the other. I think the point here is to have a discussion about it.
Ting, at that point, that will create the discussion. At that point, we can say the executive committee has already voted to have the meeting in person in December with an option for what joining in over Zoom.
Now,
let's think about at that point, if somebody wants to make a motion to overturn our decision, they have that option as the full faculty senate to do that. So that starts a discussion and allows them a vote to overturn our decision.
See, we have almost 4 or 5 executive council members who are not here. And 2 of the committees, committee on committee, as well as the faculty status welfare committee co-chairs are not here. If we just, make decision now.
Okay, there's a very easy thing. There's a very easy way to handle. Secretary Tate, do we have quorum?
Well, we said we had 12 members, but I didn't realize Walter Metz should not have been on the list. So we had 11 members on my list right now, and we had
actually we have 6
8, but
people.
now we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of us.
Six. Josh is not a member.
So-
6. Josh is not a member.
So in a way, so we do not have a quorum.
6 out of 11.
Quorum in majority or 2/3?
A majority. Quorum is a simple majority, so we do have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
We technically have quorum.
Well, wait a second. We
That's-
missed, okay,
There's no, it's
2
one way or the other.
co-chairs.
Nope, the quorum rule, what are our quorum rules?
I will find
It's
it.
just, it's Robert's rules and it's a simple majority. That's a
There's nothing in it about co-chairs, nothing in it about.
Conduct of
everything.
meetings, a majority of the elected members shall constitute a quorum.
Now, we only have 6 people here.
We have a
only have-
quorum. We have 6 out of 11, Ting. There is no reason.
No,
we can't
okay,
vote.
6, we missed 6 people. We missed, okay, 2 co-chair, 6
No.
over 6 co-chairs.
That's
But we have
not
a-
relevant. That's not relevant.
But we have a quorum.
I think we only, sure we only have 6, then we have 12 people because we can see, okay, Maxon and committee and all Farhan, I mean, all these people are not here. 6 co-chairs are not here.
Section Section 2D2, conduct of meetings in our operating paper A says a majority of the elected members shall constitute a quorum.
Okay, so do you think with 6 people have a quorum? I mean, if you think it's okay, I'm fine.
Are we arguing something that's not what everybody who still wants can join by Zoom? I mean, it's not like we're taking away that option. If they want to be in Zoom, they can be there. If they want to be in person, they can be there. There's really
That's exactly right.
Okay. Now, it's almost 6, are you going to extend it like 5 more minutes?
For the purposes of resolving this, yes, I recommend that. And I also put a vote.
Second.
I also second.
Anyone second?
Okay, yeah, we vote on this.
Vote to
Okay, so-
extend.
Vote to extend.
5 more minutes.
I would move that we put what Michael's suggestion before the Senate. We announce
So
it
you
at,
move, okay, Michael's suggestion, could you rephrase, okay? We need to announce it, who announce it, when can we announce it? We need to be
What-
exact.
What I am suggesting is we vote on it right now. My suggestion is that we announce at the November 15th meeting that the executive council has voted and support having an in-person meeting with a Zoom option for anybody that wants to join by Zoom.
Okay,
That
in
be
one
a new
second.
business.
no as an announcement under the executive council.
No,
part.
this does not, like,
Okay.
executive council or what, I mean,
Aren't
I'm
you
just
giving a
curious because,
Aren't you giving a president's report? You represent the council every week on the, every month on the Senate in your report. So this would
Okay.
go on the minutes, I think, there.
okay, so Michael, you pretty much you move it and Joe, you second, right?
That's correct.
Okay, okay, so now we're going to vote, okay? So all in favor, Michael's announcement, okay, raise up your hands.
What, hold up,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
okay.
This is, are we saying this is for a hybrid, correct? So with the faculty
Hybrid.
and executive
Zoom
committee,
option. Zoom
hybrid,
option.
okay. I think it's important to say hybrid, because if we say just in person, people are going to think, oh my gosh. But if you say hybrid, it's going to be, I think it'll be very, very smooth. So I would
So-
just like to add that friendly amendment to Michael's proposal.
So Michael, could you repeat could you modify based on the suggestion?
I recommend that we vote to have a hybrid meeting for our December meeting, and we announce it at the November 15th meeting.
Okay, so Joe second, so
Yep.
all in favor?
Yes.
Okay, good. So.
And then could we maybe do a survey to see how many people would be choosing to come in person and how many not, just to know the size of room to get?
I think we shoot for, I think the more option we give people to have surveys, the more confused everyone's gonna be.
Okay.
So we'll just make
Okay.
sure we find a room that's big enough.
We will have a month to do this. We're going to
Yeah.
find out at the November 15th meeting. We've got a whole month to find a room. I think we can handle that.
Yeah, I think we got it.
I think
Because
we
we might
have-
just need a room
That's
with
fine, that's
12
fine,
chairs.
that's fine. Okay, thank you so much, and we have 2 minutes left. Any questions for this
A
vote?
motion to adjourn. Thank you. A motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.